So I have these chains on my wrists. No handcuffs. Nothing fancy. These are cruddy little chains you'd tie your mongrel dog out to take a shit in the yard. Nothing too strong. Then again, no one can own a dog anymore, or have a yard worth shitting in. If I were strong and mean and full of fire, I might be able to break these chains or stress them enough to pull free. I'm not that terribly strong, or filled with mean, so I just stare at these chains and wonder how many sad citizens these guys have sent to their graves. How many times they've found their captive either jumping around the back of the van or jumping out the back door. Not like the van is anything like a jail or a vault on wheels. Flabby sheet metal walls riveted together by someone who used the tools because they were told to, not because they wanted to. You get that sort of fellow who gets enough from Daddy G, enough cheese, enough cheddar, enough money, enough ease, that his needs are met, but the state can't have loafers or layabouts, wasting time waiting to grow old and die. Not that they grow old and grow fat at the same time, because they never have too much to eat, but they get to be a nuisance if they idle about and are lazy. So the Daddy G sets them off to work. They don't need the money. They have the basics, the essentials. Not like they have anything else available for them to need or want and desire, kind of a thing with the past. So they work because the Daddy G says they should, to make themselves useful. It's always a good human being to be useful. If you aren't being useful to us, you aren't useful at all to waste a breath on. I suppose it's important that they should feel useful. Yes, the little people, they should feel useful. They should feel desired, to be cared for, to be coddled. But they resent the necessity of working, and it certainly shows in the work they do. The panels on the box sides aren't exactly straight and true, and some of the rivets have popped out. That's how I know it's nighttime outside, because the holes are all black as night. The quality work of worker drones. My father was something like that. The future is now, and the past was then. Father was young and strong, and I saw photographs of the man when he was younger than I am now. Tall and lean and strong. Had this jaw that you could use as an anvil. Eyes set strong and straight. For quite a long time, I thought the photo was fake because it had nothing to do with the man I knew as father. He was still tall, but stooped and bent, and his strong arms had withered to these skinny, knobby tree branches, and his hands had this weird buckle to them, like some horrible form of arthritis that gave him claw hands. That's the kind of thing you expect of an old man, but father wasn't that old. The biggest thing was the face. The strong jaw was all slack, where he was missing a bunch of his teeth. That wasn't even the worst of it, though, because his eyes were as blank as paper. He just stared all the time, not as if he was stupid or an idiot or lost his mind, though when he started talking, the notion of his having gone nuts seemed more likely. He just stared. When I was young, this didn't seem such a thing. Now, when I had his attention, he'd look at me as if I was a stranger. Mother never spoke of what changed him. Can't be that shocking. To see the world as it is, what breaks a man seems to be so easy to see. She knew well enough, and I took some time to put the pieces together. The missing teeth were because of the jaw. Why the jaw? Because the jaw was the reason he was sent to the locked room to have a conversation with Mr. Pipe and Mr. Fist. I'm not giving bullshit here. The two agents who beat the shit out of you for being non-compliant were named Mr. Pipe and Mr. Fist, and they lived by their namesake, a pipe and a fist. If there was a job that found the sort of fellow who, in this day and age, would love their work, it was the man who beat the hell out of another man in order to satiate the state. Mr. Pipe, Mr. Fist, how nice to meet you. Are you having a lovely day? You seem to love your work. I wonder why. Anyway, a handsome man with a good jaw meant something to the state, an evocation of something old and primal in man that was keen to resist compliance. Father was a good-hearted man that began resenting the extra attention the state gave him. In fact, The state created a revolutionary out of a fine man through excessive detention, questioning, and threats. Hello, Mr. Pipe. Hello, Mr. Fist. How are you doing today? I'm fine. Are we here for our usual meeting? Yes, we are. And he's sitting in a chair, waiting very compliantly. After 10 years of incarceration, questioning, demands, beatings, starvation, isolation, and public rebuke, the good, strong man my father was now the broken soul he became. It was for this very fact I offer my life in hopes that the big Daddy G burn in 1,000 hells and be damned for eternity. I did see Father at work, and all he did was push a broom around. When the state was done with Father, there was this thin, little, tiny bastard that rode around in a cart to take up the work of further breaking him. This bastard yapped at him. A little man with a clipboard. He'd slip in behind some guys on the production floor and wait for the right moment, then snap the clamp on his clipboard. Any time you heard that snap, you knew someone was in for deep shit. He'd berate them or inquire on what they were doing, their progress for the day, what they had planned on doing for the remainder of their shift. I thought it was all a game when I visited Father for the few times at the factory. I didn't see it as much of a game when this same bastard was my supervisor. The death of my father's spirit and this shitty little man was the start of my adventure that ended up with me waiting for a firing squad to get their bullets together. David, not Dave or Big D or Boss or even Fucker. David, the little son of a bitch with a clipboard. And you had to slowly enunciate it to his exacting specifications or you'd hear a long monologue on the respective state-sanctioned supervisors and how they were the backbone of the G. And since I'm condemned to death, I don't have to worry so much about saying this, but the G, the Daddy G, can go to hell. The G can burn in hell. They can make a movie about the G burning in hell and give themselves all the awards about how well they play-acted the G burning in hell. And when the G, the Daddy G, is done burning in hell, everyone can clutch their damn pearls and grasp their chests and wring their hands at what all has happened. And when the G, the Daddy G, is laid to rest, all of mankind can finally celebrate and start living again. Well, by the time I was in my 20s, I was perfectly satisfied with the notion of sacrificing my life to give Daddy G the big fat finger. Funny how I would be working for the G for another 20 years. Then again, if you're living and breathing, you're an employee of the state. If you're living and breathing, you're owned by the state. The idea of being your own person was turned obsolete for the sake of all, the greater good, the greater, greater, greater good, the greater, 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 greater good. The chant of brainless fools with no soul left in them. Being selfish was a capital offense. You were owned by the state, and Daddy G will squeeze every ounce out of its subjects. I plotted and planned and fanned my ambitions for going out big and bold, all while watching some damn fool or another try the same thing and get snuffed out in the middle of the night. Being a revolutionary was a pretty big fad for a while until people had to pay for the revolution with their lives, and they did. Every one of them, from their families and friends to the slob that worked right next to them at their dead-end job. The G knows everything. Daddy G knows it all. Joe, Bob, or Ted would be at work one day after playing revolutionary and then be gone the next. They'd be on the toilet or in the shower getting ready for work when the strong arm of Daddy G would come through the door. Daddy G didn't even knock. Didn't even show paperwork or summons or warrant. Poof! Joe, Bob, or Ted wouldn't even have time to wipe their ass or dry their hair before they were gone. Sorry, pal. You don't need a clean ass where you're going. Being a revolutionary wasn't all fun and games. Where Joe, Bob, or Ted was gone and dead, there was a keen and eager replacement waiting to spot the next unwitting participant to be vanished from sight, because Daddy G knows everything.